are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for listening to Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by John Schuster.
I'm his conscience on his left shoulder here saying, do bad things, do bad things.
By the way, I'm wearing the old Arizona emblem from their 1-11 season. It's personal, baby. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to talk a lot of stuff here, obviously. First and foremost, Dalen Terry commits to the draft, declares for the draft, but I wouldn't worry about it. There seems to be a lot of rumblings that he's going to come back. But John Schuster, who's also a big fan of Dalen Terry, has said the exact same thing that I think other people have, that once you never know, once somebody declares, you start poking and prodding a little bit and you get a little nervous there.
There are a lot of things regarding Terry that NBA teams can be really fascinated about. Mm-hmm. And depending on who looks at him and how closely they do, seeing his physical skill set in addition to what he's been able to do if they study video a little bit more closely might make him very intriguing and put him in a position where he moves up draft charts a little bit. He is the type of player who I think a team lower in the draft could be very pleased with getting in the first round. From a Wildcat perspective, hopefully, there is a belief that he can benefit from coming back another year. Terry takes that to heart, and if he does, I think that's a very good foundation for Arizona basketball moving forward. But I'm not surprised by any of this, but I am pleased that he's leaving the door open for a return.
Yeah, and he's a guy, too, that I think could really benefit by coming back, because I think he's got a coach that knows how to utilize him. I think that he could go from, like you and I were talking about somewhere else, this past year, he averaged 5 rebounds, 4 assists per game. I would assume that that's going to be at least the same, maybe 5 and 5, 6 and 5, something like that. But if he can get into that 12-point per game realm where he becomes a legitimate offensive, threat, which I think he's more than capable of, then he becomes really effective.
Later in the season, he was 9 of 14 from 3?
Yeah, for sure.
10 of 14 from 3, something like that. So even though the shot doesn't look good, and when he misses badly, he was opportune in that regard. So, if he's in a position where he can up his 3-point numbers into the 35 to maybe high 30 percentile range, that looks good as well, because all the other skill set is there. If he returns, and hopefully, obviously, from an Arizona standpoint, that's the case, the most exciting thing I'm looking for next year is to see him on the floor with ball. Mm-hmm. And the two of them, I think, have a very similar game. Mm-hmm. And if you can play the two of them at the same time with that kind of help, that kind of height, and that kind of floor sense, I think they could be a real problem for a lot of teams next year, the way they move the ball around, the way they play defensively, and give Arizona an opportunity to be successful again in transition.
That floor sense isn't nonsense. I'll put it to you like that. So, was that funny or not?
That was hilarious. More bad jokes like that, please.
Yes. Okay. As far as, the rest of the guys on the roster go, Mathurin makes perfect sense leaving. By the way, we got the game on in the background right here. It's the Milwaukee Bucks against the Chicago Bulls. Is there a more German name ever than the Milwaukee Bucks coach, Mike Budenholzer? That sounds like a Panzer tank commander.
Yes.
I mean, that is amazing how German that is right there. And this is coming from somebody who's 100% German.
You're 100% German?
I am 100% German.
Wow.
Yeah. Both my parents, 100%.
100%.
100%. Yes, exactly.
Wow.
My dad's grandma's last name was Hoffner, very German.
Right.
My grandpa's last name was obviously Luke. My dad's name, Vance Hoffner Luke.
That's a great name.
Isn't that a great name?
That is
Vance Hoffner Luke.
Wow.
I am merely Michael Aaron Luke.
Yeah, you got a boring middle name.
I do, yeah.
Not only did your dad get the cooler first name, your dad got the cooler middle name.
Yeah, no, he really did. Yeah, my dad's...
Your dad is like an action hero.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a lot of Steven Seagal movies that haven't made the big screen. A lot of them star my dad.
They should.
But people just don't know about it. But Budenholzer, a very German name. But we'll get back to that here.
Will we?
Well, actually, I don't know that we're actually going to get back to that. We're not going to circle back to that.
All right, Jen.
All right, yes. So, but real quick, then we're going to get to Koloko and we're going to get to Mathurin. Let me tell you about Built Bar.
By all means.
All right. Now, you're looking at both of us and you're like, man, pretty well put together, peeps. Built Bar.
And you're saying it exactly like that, too.
Built Bar is what has done it. You get the blueberry get the blueberry one.
That's right.
I have become a blueberry aficionado as well. I don't know if that's necessarily a thing, the aficionado part, but I very much like the blueberry. It's very good. And you know what? It doesn't taste like that chalky, it's just good. It's good stuff. Would you agree with this?
Yes. Yes,
right.
I would.
All right, let's take a quick break. Thanks for sticking with us and watching us during that break. I am Mike.
It was pretty riveting.
Yes, it was. I am Mike Luke, joined by John Schuster. We're now about to talk about Benedict Mathurin right now. Benedict Mathurin is, that was a no-brainer. If you're a top 10 pick, I'm generally okay with you leaving there, John Schuster.
Yeah, or lottery pick in general. Frankly, at this stage of the game, first-round pick.
Right.
If you're a guaranteed first-round pick, you're going to get guaranteed money.
Right.
And, obviously that becomes a little bit more questionable if they think you're going to go at 25.
Right.
If they think you're going to go at 10, then you're going to go in the first round.
Right.
And Mathurin could go 10 or higher.
Right.
So, I don't think none of this is necessarily a surprise. Mathurin is the least surprising of all of them because it was known for quite some time that he was very highly regarded the way things were projecting for him. And when they got to that point, he was going to go. And I don't think anybody can be particularly disappointed about it. You can make arguments about always returning and perhaps improving your game a little bit and maybe sticking in the league a little bit longer. But you're talking about guaranteed money here, and you're talking about a high draft choice. You've got a team that's investing in you, and they're going to want that investment to pay off, so they're going to try to do everything they can to make that happen.
What kind of pro do you think he is? Right now, would you feel comfortable if you got the 8th pick? You feel comfortable choosing Mathurin?
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy who his athleticism is nonsense. He can
really shoot.
He can handle. His shooting's really good. If he's engaged on the defensive end, I think he can do some positive things in that regard as well. Shown that he has the ability to be unselfish and can can create his own shots. There's a lot to like about Mathurin at the next level. Sure. Now it still remains interesting. I've said this on a number of occasions, and I'll stick with it. I think Dalen Terry is going to make more money in the NBA than anybody on last year's Arizona roster. So as a team looking at what I like from Arizona's prospects, and Arizona's got 3 really interesting prospects. Terry's the guy that I'd seriously consider.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But of course, I'm lousy at this NBA projection thing, so I can understand that people look at Mathurin.
That's why we're here with 5 pictures in the background, including falsely attributed quotes to Michael Jordan on one of these.
They're very motivational.
Yeah, but it's motivational nonetheless, and I think that's what we're trying to do around here.
Okay.
Now, BetOnline. If you wanted to bet on Ben Mathurin and where he was going to go, BetOnline would be the spot that you'd want to go to. Am I right?
No, you're absolutely right. If you wanted to bet on who got the quotation wrong on Mike Luke's pictures in the background, possibility you could do that at BetOnline as well.
Is that all right? Well, is that the it kind of threw me off there because it was so nice and it was so.
But it's quite a prop bet.
Yeah, it is quite a prop bet. But you know what? Make it happen right there. We'll be right back. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke, with John Schuster. All right, Christian Koloko, the last one. I would have probably advised Koloko to come back. I think that Koloko has a spot in the NBA. I don't believe, though, that – how do I put this? I don't believe that he – I don't believe he has the offensive game right now to be able to play it all on the court.
There are aspects of improvement that he still needs.
Yes,
and he's going to learn on the fly against much better competition with a bunch of guys who are like him.
Correct.
At the college level, when you're 7-1 or whatever the hell he is, and you can be a factor at the next level with that kind of athleticism,
right,
and gifted presence.
Right.
There are 20 guys. 40 guys who are sort of like him and probably more physically advanced at this stage and maybe a little bit more mentally advanced who have more well-rounded games. You're going to have to play these guys every night. And is Koloko ready for that? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe there were some improvements that could have enhanced his game, perhaps be a mid-range jumper or work on. Arizona spent a lot of time running Koloko up high and then rolling him to the basket. he could have been the type of guy who you pick, and then instead of rolling, you pop him out a little bit, and he shoots from 15 to 18. Something that, could have been an additional repertoire that made him even more appealing next year. Would he have been a higher draft pick? I think if he came back for another year, I think so. But again, if you're going to be a first-round pick, at this stage, it's hard to argue a return. And the argument, and it's a fair argument, the argument of NBA longevity versus getting guaranteed money is certainly legitimate. But when you're talking about a 20-year-old kid who doesn't understand that 5 years in the future for a 20-year-old kid is 25% of your
correct.
20% of your life.
Right.
Okay. So
you're not going to live beyond 35 with these kids' minds. Yes.
And so when you're thinking that way, well, why wouldn't I take the guaranteed money and play in the NBA? Right. I can figure out all the rest of it. Why do I want to come back to college and do all that college stuff? And so as good as it is at a specific school, as fun as the parties are, as great as it is to play in front of the fans, those sorts of things, the reality anymore is if you're a guaranteed first rounder, more often than not, the kid's gone.
All right, we'll be back with you to talk about that later. But for John Schuster, I'm Mike Luke. Thanks for listening to Locked On